Folks, we're back in the Cobb TV studio with Cobb Commission Chairwoman Lisa Cupid for our weekly chat. And Chairwoman, there's a lot to talk about this week. There's a lot that went on, and so I just want to kick it off with last Tuesday's meeting, and the highlight of that was passing the FY 2022 budget.
Yes, it certainly was. I think this was a big event for our new board, and I am grateful that we were able to put a lot of measures in place, which shows that things are coming back from this pandemic. Last time I was here with Tiffany, I talked about us being able to address some staple items within our budget, addressing things like capital maintenance, which should not ever be deferred, addressing increases in our pension and healthcare costs and offsetting some of the burden on our employees, but also helping our public safety officers. This year we're very fortunate that we were able to put the stepping grade program in place, or at least fund it. And we were able to continue with that program with this budget, in addition to providing merit to our employees to recognize their contributions to this organization and county. This budget also enabled us to provide funding for addressing compression. That's been an issue within our organization. So again, some things just not particularly sexy, but certainly things that give some assurance that we are adding stability to our organization. Some things beyond that that add stability to the organization is our first DE&I officer will be funded through this budget.
Which means?
We'll be able to address issues that are in our organization and in our community, which means?
Well, I guess D&E, first of all, is diversity.
Okay, yeah, so we're so used to being caught up in acronyms.
Yes, we
so
are.
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Yep. And yeah, I think this is a very fitting time, considering all that's been going on across our country and in our local communities, to be able to ensure that we are being intentional about being inclusive within the organization, again, within our practices, in how we deliver services and procurement, and also, again, how we gauge the health of our community. Something else that we've also been able to support is the continuing impact to the probate court during the pandemic and the increased request for licensing, and also helping the DA with his desire to move lower level offenders through magistrate court. And what that does is it frees up our superior court judges to address the more egregious matters, and it keeps those lower level offenders out of a system when they can be better rehabilitated by going through the magistrate court system more quickly.
One thing I wanted to step back and ask you about, because there's been some questions that have come into me about it, and I know you were out at a event last night where you saw some of Cobb's newest police officers get sworn in. We're talking about step-in grade. What does that mean for public safety and police in particular, and how does that bolster up the force?
Yes, it means reliability in their pay. You know, we have done a lot of work to make sure we provide a compensation benefit package and compensation package to officers. But if you don't maintain that year after year, what certainly seems attractive initially loses that sway. So the step-in grade program allows us to ensure that officers are going to be paid a certain salary based on the number of years of service.
Another thing I wanted to step back and ask you about is, and we did a lot of attempting to explain this Tuesday night at the board meeting, we have to advertise this as a tax increase,
yes,
even though we didn't raise the tax rates. And that's really confusing to a lot of people.
That is true, because when we think of taxes, we think about that percent that we're paying on top of our bill. And we did not increase our millage, which would be that percent that the public is paying. However, because of the increased value of property, our digest, which is the total amount of tax collected, has increased. And anytime we have an increase in our digest, we have to advertise that as a tax increase. And therefore, you know, we took time, and we will continue to make sure that we impress upon the public that we are not increasing their tax rate, and also encouraging them to take advantage of the homestead exemption, because they are able to lock in an assessment of their home value based on the year that they take advantage of that exemption. So their tax assessment against their property isn't going up year after year. So again, just want to encourage the public, if you have not taken advantage of that of that homestead exemption, please do.
So I'm a good example of that. I bought a home in Cobb County in the early 90s, and I'm sending the amount to the county's general fund today, the same amount that I sent in the early 90s, although my house has increased in value quite a bit. I don't think a lot of people understand it. It's a difficult concept because not a lot of jurisdictions use the homestead exemption, but it's just for the county's general fund, and it doesn't impact the school district or the fire fund or the other parts of their property tax.
That is true. And, I'm glad that you did recommend those other assessments, that people will see in their property taxes that don't have that exemption. So I'm not saying that people may not see some increase, but certainly will be offset by us being able to stabilize what we're assessing on that homestead exemption value.
Another big topic this week, we're coming to the end of the month, and that means the evictions moratorium will expire.
Yes.
And I think the federal government says this is the last one. It will not be extended. And I know we've already had a lot in place to help deal with that and mitigate the effects of that.
Certainly. And, and we will continue to do what we can to mitigate the effects of that. We were fortunate to receive CARES dollars last year to help address housing stability. And this year we received funds through the ERA program, which helps to assist families that need help with rent. However, it's been shared nationally, there have been challenges in getting this money out. And just recently in listening to national news, I learned that a lot of states have not even gotten out 5% of their ERA funds. Well, that's not the case in Cobb County. We've given out about 35% of our funds, and this has been with the help of our nonprofit community. I shouldn't say help, partnership, because they truly have been partners with us even prior to the pandemic in addressing housing stability. But when it came time to address the issues associated with the pandemic, they stepped up, and a lot of them are giving out record numbers of funds than they have in the past. But this doesn't mean it's not going to be a challenge for persons who have not received funding yet. So we want to assure people that if you do get an eviction notice, to please file an answer, because that gives you the opportunity to appear before the judge. And our magistrate court judge, or chief magistrate court judge, Brendan Murphy, has also been a phenomenal partner and has been working with our nonprofit organizations. And I perceive that to be a safety net, that even if you are concerned about not receiving funds prior to your court date, that once you get to the court, he's there working with providers. Providers are there on site. They're actually expediting funding or addressing the time period of which the cases are dispositioned, to ensure that people are not slipping through the cracks. But residents must do their part. Again, if you're in a position where you receive an eviction notice, we can't tell you enough, please file an answer so that you're able to take advantage of what I perceive to be a safety net within our magistrate court system.
I like the way the judge talked to the board Tuesday night at the meeting. I can't quote him directly, but he said something like, what they're doing in magistrate court is the safety net for the safety net. So if there are people that come into his system there that aren't aware of all the programs, he has somebody actually there to direct him to these programs that are available before they get evicted.
And that's right. And the same night where we passed the budget, we also passed an agenda item, or approved an agenda item, to augment the support of legal aid to the court system. So we have additional support on top of our service providers being there in the court system. And I commend him and so many of our partners with our service providers, and also Cobb's Division of Atlanta Legal Aid, and stepping up to make sure that we are helping our residents who are most vulnerable at this time.
One thing that we've done here too is, as you know, to try to add to that safety net, sent out mailers to rental addresses across the county just to make them aware of this, because a lot of people said they did not know these programs. So anyway, we can try to make contact with them. And then the second thing is, there's been complaints that people can't show that they are harmed by COVID.
Yes.
We also put out some information through your office about money available that is not necessarily tied to the pandemic.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I thank you, being our communications director, and being at the table for so many of these discussions, to see how imperative communication is. And yes, just will underscore that we have information that we've been putting out, whether by mail, electronically, to let people know that there is funding available if it's a COVID-related matter, but if it's not a COVID-related matter, that there are still organizations that may be able to assist.
That's absolutely right. And before we go, I did want to touch on probably the biggest of all big topics this week is the rise of COVID-19 again, not just in Cobb County, but in the state and across the country. It's largely the Delta variant, which Dr. Memark told me yesterday was 200% more transmissible than previous variants.
Yeah.
Again, you've got to be concerned. I know you talk to public health all the time, and not only about the county, but our Cobb County family as well, and how this is affecting us.
Yes, and it's affecting all of us personally. You know, to see loved ones and friends struggle through this pandemic, and also seeing our businesses and organizations struggle as we have finally been able to come together and to know that the same restrictions we had last year may be put in place due to the Delta variant. I can't encourage the public enough to make sure you get vaccinated. Right now, you know, there has been controversy about that, but again, as I've shared before in another taping, those who are more likely to be hospitalized and to succumb to COVID are those that are unvaccinated. So please, I can't tell you, don't put your loved ones through having to bear with that on a personal level, but on a broader corporate or public level. You know, we all are desiring to get back out and to live our life with some sense of normalcy, and it's impossible to do that unless we get the masses vaccinated. And so I know internally in the county, I believe there'll be a vaccination event later in the month of August, but many of our healthcare providers are providing vaccinations today. You can walk in and get vaccinated, and you can get tested as well, because the only way that you can confirm that you have COVID is to get tested. So take advantage of those opportunities, and just know that, you know, we'll get past this the sooner that we are able to push people and get them vaccinated. You know, in the meanwhile, you know, I've been vaccinated. You know, we are encouraging people to wear masks, and I hate to have to go back to that because of the discomfort of it. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's just some level of responsibility and responsiveness that I think we all can have to keeping this transmission level low. So be mindful of masking, particularly if you're in large groups, if you're close proximity to people, and watch your distance, and all of those things I think are still good tips.
Right, and even if you have, talking to Dr. Memark yesterday, if you've had the vaccine, we've heard a lot about these breakthrough cases about people who've been vaccinated but still test positive for COVID. You may have COVID in your system, but being vaccinated may not have any symptoms, but can pass that on to an unvaccinated person. So that was a big concern, and a big reason for that everybody, not just unvaccinated, but vaccinated people, wear masks when near others.
Yes, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, and you know, my voice is lower today, and I'm getting over illness, and you know, just get tested when you're feeling sick, even if you've been vaccinated, just to be sure that you know, you don't have COVID, so you can be just, you know, more mindful of the impact you can have on those around you.
As always, we appreciate you stopping by. We've been talking about your calendar today, so I know you've got to.
That is true.
You've got to get out. So thanks for coming by. We'll see you again hopefully next week. We'll have information about the COVID situation, an interview with Dr. Memark on our YouTube channel. We really ask you to subscribe to that. Visit our webpage also at cobbcounty.org for a lot of the information about evictions, rental and utilities assistance, and all matters pertaining to that on cobbcounty.org. And we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Have a great weekend.